My name is Elaine Evans. I am an extension educator and bee researcher at the University of Minnesota. I work in the Bee Lab on the St. Paul campus. And I am here today to talk to you about gardening for pollinators. First, I want to back up a little bit and talk about why we care about pollinators, or why we should care. So pollinators are responsible for about 1 out of every 3 bites of food that we eat. But beyond that, 80% of plants rely on animals for pollination. And then from there are countless other creatures that feed on those plants and creatures that feed on those creatures. And these things all work together to help maintain soil and water health. So it goes to this whole ecosystem effect from these pollinators. I'm going to focus on bees. Bees are one of the most important groups of pollinators, as they really interact directly with the flowers. They're interested in collecting pollen as well as nectar, and are responsible for a lot of that moving of pollen around that makes that pollination happen. In Minnesota, we have a pretty diverse group of bees. There are over 470 different kinds of bees in Minnesota. So there's lots of variety in terms of colors and shapes. We have dicker bees, mason bees, leafcutter bees, bumblebees, these small metallic carpenter bees, as well as cellophane bees, sweat bees, longhorn bees, miner bees, perdita bees, yellow-faced bees, cuckoo bees. Lots of different things to look for out on flowers and to support, to have this these services that the pollinators can provide for us. Next, I'm going to talk about how bees are doing. So are they in decline or are they fine? And it really varies. So a lot of those 470 different species that we have in Minnesota, we don't know very much even about where they are in Minnesota, nonetheless knowing about how their population is doing. There are a few groups of bees that we do know about, and some other pollinators where we have some information about how they're doing. Do we need to be concerned about them? For bumblebees, the news is that we do need to be concerned. 1 out of 3 species globally are in decline, and that is certainly the case here in Minnesota. We have 24 different species of bumblebees, and there's 6 that we're concerned about how their populations are doing compared to the past. One you may have heard about is the rusty patch bumblebee. It is the Minnesota state bee. It was once fairly common here in Minnesota, but is now facing extinction. This is a really rare bee now. We're lucky to still have them in Minnesota, but they do have federal protection as an endangered species to try to prevent their extinction. Are honeybees at risk of extinction? Many people here have heard about honeybees. We know about them for their honey that we eat, but how are they doing? Are they a bee to be concerned about going extinct? Actually, not. They're not necessarily doing fine. They do have health problems. Their populations are not in decline. Colony numbers are actually pretty stable, mostly just from the efforts of beekeepers to continue to raise more bees to replace colonies that they lose due to health problems. But in terms of extinction and needing to kind of save the bees, honeybees are actually doing okay in that respect. We need to learn more about their health problems. We need to support beekeepers who are doing what they need to do to protect the health of those bee colonies. Looking at what's causing declines, there are a lot of different things that can interact together that present challenges for pollinators. At the center of that is habitat loss. which results in poor nutrition for the bees and fewer places to live. So conversion of prairies away from that, which used to have lots of flowers here in Minnesota, to more agricultural landscapes, and even just looking at what's happening in the margins around fields where even 20 years ago there used to be more flowers there. There's a big loss of flowers across the landscape. Pesticides are a problem. There are parasites and diseases that cause problems, as well as climate change. And one thing that just complicates things is that these factors all interact with each other to compound the damage. For example, with habitat loss, when bees have poor nutrition, they're less able to deal with things like pesticides. There is a cost for bees metabolically to detoxify from pesticide exposure. And you know, not that they're always able to deal with the pesticides, even if they have good nutrition, but when they have better nutrition, they're more able to deal with some of those stresses. Whereas when they both don't have enough flowers to get nutrition from and have this pesticide exposure, it can result in an even bigger problem for them. So what can you do to help pollinators? What can you do in your gardens and in your communities to help pollinators? Fortunately, there are action steps we can take. The biggest one that we can do in terms of our gardens is planting flowers. There are a lot of different flower choices out there. There are lots of different plant lists for pollinators. One of the things you can do is observing flowers to see which ones attract bees and getting more of those flowers. When you're observing those flowers, make sure you look for a diversity of bees. So look for bees that are a lot of different sizes and shapes. It's especially important for pollinators and for bees in particular to have flowers that bloom early in the spring or late in the fall. There tend to be lots of flowers available in the middle of the summer, but those and either ends of the season can be more sparse, and there's a lot of needs for bees at those times. Having a diversity of plants makes a big difference, as well as remembering that we need to keep those plants free of pesticides. And that includes especially insecticides and fungicides. Another thing that people may not be thinking about in terms of what you can do for pollinators in your gardens and plantings is to provide homes. So for our bees that we have here in Minnesota, most of the bees we have are nesting in the ground. A lot of people hear ground bees and they get scared thinking about what was most likely a yellow jacket nest. These what people do call yellow jacket wasps. Sometimes they call them ground bees because they make their nests in their ground and they can be very aggressive. However, the vast majority of the bees that we have here in Minnesota are solitary, so they don't have a big nest. They're only active for a couple weeks out of the year as adults, and the rest of the year they're just living in the ground. You don't even know that they're there. We know so little about where they are that we actually don't have documented nesting habitat for most of the bees. So it's really easy to provide habitat in terms of just having areas that you leave alone. Leave some leaves on the ground, have other areas with bare ground, leave the ground alone, have some undisturbed ground, and help provide habitat for those bees. For cavity nesting bees, these are bees that nest in stems or in holes in the wood. And you can help them by just when you're cutting back your plants, leaving some stem for them. So if you leave about 8 inches of stem there, you can provide habitat for, it's about 14% of Minnesota bees in terms of the species that will need this kind of habitat. Also, if you have a log or stumps that you can leave in your yard, that can help those bees. For bumblebees, they just need, again, just kind of areas left alone. So if you have some messy corners in your yard where you can leave some piles of leaves, dried grass, sticks, that can help those bumblebees get a place to live. And expanding out from bees to include other pollinators, looking at moths and butterflies, they also need larval forage. So a famous one is pictured here, are monarch butterflies that need milkweed, but there are a lot of other important moths and butterflies that use a wide variety of different plants. Some of them use native grasses. Having that variety of native plants will help to provide food for those butterflies and moths. We get a lot of questions at the Bee Lab about the stem nesting bees to try to figure out, where, how, if I'm leaving these stems, when can I take them down? It's kind of the same question with the leaves. If you're leaving leaves on the ground, when can I clean them up? People want to have, keep their yard looking presentable. And one of the things that we suggest, so again, I love the kind of messy corners, leaving some areas that you can just leave messy year round. That ends up being the best for a lot of different pollinators. However, when we're looking at stems that you're leaving up in your yard, this graphic here is to help you see what the annual cycle is like. So in the winter, if you're able to leave those dead stalks standing over the winter, it's the next spring that the bees will start making their nest in there. So if you cut back the stems, and 8 inches is kind of the minimum, you can leave them taller. And the female bees will go in and start making nests in there. Those bees will then develop over the summer. They will be in there through the fall and winter, and it's not until the following spring that those bees then emerge. So when you're leaving those stems in your yard, you need to leave them for that full year plus a bit. So so it really, if you are doing this, it's really important that you leave them there long enough so that these bees have a chance to fully develop and emerge. We have this great guidebook for how to assess your habitat for pollinators. So this is a resource that's designed for yards, gardens, and parks. So any kind of area that you're trying to encourage pollinators, you can use this habitat assessment guide to go through and assess your site. Look at how you're doing for foraging habitat, nesting habitat, what if you're using pesticides, what's going on there, as well as how you're using your garden to connect with the community. And then doing an assessment also afterwards to see if you found ways that you can improve, what you've done to improve. So this has a lot of specific suggestions that can help you look at your particular site that you're working at to have more habitat for pollinators and help you find ways that you can improve. So we've covered food for the bees, planting flowers. We've covered nesting habitat, providing homes for the bees. The third action for helping pollinators is to take climate action. So there is increasing evidence that pollinators are impacted by climate change, which isn't a big surprise since this is happening to, globally, things around the world. There's a few different ways that these things are impacting bees and other pollinators, there's habitat loss, there's extreme weather events like both floods, droughts, wildfires. There's also shifts in the range. A lot of pollinators are actually shrinking in the range that they can take up because of changes in the climate. Ways to help out here are reducing the release of greenhouse gases by using clean energy sources like wind and solar, supporting environmental regulations that can help us control climate change and turn things around. People talk about a good deal about planting trees as a way to get those carbon, the carbon out of the atmosphere, get those greenhouse gases, sequester them into the trees, taking them out of the atmosphere. But actually another good way to do that is by planting prairie plants. So these native plants that have these really deep root systems, these root systems that can go, 6 feet or more underground, those are also pulling carbon out and helping overall with us to get those greenhouse gases out of the atmosphere. Also looking at how we grow crops, sustainable agriculture is a great way to also help with that. A fourth action that you can take to help pollinators is to help with collecting data. There are several different projects that have public participation for you to monitor and keep track of pollinators. The Monarch Larva Monitoring Project, which you can find information about with the Monarch Joint Venture, is doing a lot to keep track of what's going on with monarch butterflies by counting monarch eggs and caterpillars on milkweeds. Bumblebee Watch is a program focused on bumblebees, where you can take photos of bumblebees anywhere across North America and share them with the program. We've been learning a lot about where some of those rare bumblebees are from people sharing their observations. iNaturalist is another great way to take photos and share, and you can use this with any kind of pollinator that you see. So not just bumblebees, but butterflies, any kind of bee, anything that you see on flowers. You can just keep track of, go out and do a pollinator safari in your garden, taking photos and sharing them on iNaturalist, where you will get help identifying what you have. A specific program you can help with that's coming up soon is the backyard bumblebee count. And my slide was not updated here for 2021, but it starts on July 23rd this year and goes through August 1st. And this is with iNaturalist, so you can participate in this just by taking pictures of bumblebees. But we're focusing on this particular time because this is when the most bumblebees are out. The colonies are built up for the year. And we're hoping to get lots of information about where bumblebees are. So if you get a chance to get out in your gardens, in your parks, wherever you want to go look at and to find some flowers, take photos of them and share them with the bumblebee scientific community and conservation groups who are keeping track of bumblebees. If you're participating in any of these programs, it really helps to take a few different photos of bees. So it can be hard to take pictures of bees as they're flying around on flowers, but it helps to have the macro setting so you can get close up. That's what that little flower symbol usually is. A lot of phones now have great cameras that'll have a macro setting as well. Get a photo of the back of the bee, if you can get the bee's face, and also get the side view of the bee. Those are the things that we need to see to be able to identify those bees. One trick for being able to get those different views if the bee is flying around really quickly is to take a video, and then if you go into your video, you should be able to grab some stills and get those different angles. Summing up how to help pollinators, how to plant for pollinators, having those diverse flowers in your plantings, you're going to be able to support diverse pollinators. If you have pollinator food and pollinator habitat too, those nesting areas, it's important to keep them pesticide free, and making sure that you are giving them those spaces where they can make their homes. In addition, it's important that we all take personal, social, political action to combat climate change and make the world a more stable place for not only the pollinators, but for ourselves. And you can also take this to the next step by, if you're really excited about pollinators, becoming a pollinator educator. We have some resources that we have available to anybody who is interested in taking on the challenge to talk to your friends, neighbors, anyone in your community, to get them on board with how important pollinators are and what they can do to help. You can sign up for a digital pollinator educator toolkit by visiting z.umn.edu/pollinator ambassador. And that was a program that is supported by the Environment and Natural Resources Trust Fund. If you are looking for more information about bees and resources to help you figure out more details for planting lists and things like that, you can visit the beelab website at beelab.umn.edu. We also have a good deal of information on social media if you're interested in following us there. And thank you for your attention. I'm hoping that you're excited about bees, and feel free to contact me if you have any questions. I'll make sure to have my contact information available. Hi, I'm Elaine Evans, Extension Educator with the University of Minnesota, and I'm going to give you a quick little tour of my pollinator garden at my yard here in St. Paul, Minnesota. There is lots of stuff blooming right now. Are some black-eyed Susan. There is a lovely little flower fly visiting there. I have a mix of a lot of different kinds of plants in here. Stiff sunflower, echinacea. I have some thistles, some Russian thistles. I have a good deal of bee balm, which is a very popular plant, especially with bumblebees. So we've got a bumblebee flying around here. And I've bordered my boulevard garden with some creeping thyme. So this is a lower growing plant, so when my neighbors are getting out of their car, they have a place to put their foot. But I've filled the rest of my garden with a mix of native grasses. We've got some side oats grama here, as well as we have cup plant. Here are some sweat bees on cup plant. There's another bumblebee visiting my garden. So a lot of different plants, different heights here to provide habitat for pollinators. One of my favorite pollinator plants is not quite open yet. This is Joe Pieweed, and I have a whole kind of fence line of Joe Pieweed between my house, my yard, and my neighbor's yard. And what I do with the stems for these is I just leave the old stems there over the year. So those are the stems from last year. And bees can make their nests in there, and the new plants just grow up around them. So I just leave them there through the year. Also a fan of food plants for myself. So between my house and my neighbor's house, I have a whole line of these yostaberry shrubs. They're in the currant family. They are a great early source of pollen for bees in the spring, and then this time of year I'm able to get a lot of berries. One of the great things about this plant is it produces fruit even in the shade. This is an example of one of the messy corners I have in my yard near the fence line with my neighbor. I have a pile of sticks. There are vines that have grown up all around there, and there's a lot of great potential habitat for bees just in this little corner. Most of my yard has been turned into gardens for pollinators, but where I do have lawn areas, I have been putting white clover seeds in, and that helps to provide some flowers in areas that I keep short, so it's easy to walk around and run around and play. In shadier parts of my backyard, for those lower growing areas, I have a lot of Virginia waterleaf, which is a native plant and is low growing, has beautiful blooms early in the spring to provide those important resources for pollinators. It dies back a bit in the summer, leaving some more kind of bare spots in some of the yard, but I don't really mind that, as that provides some nesting habitat for those ground nesting bees. Talk about planting for pollinators. A lot of times people leave out trees, but trees are flowers. Trees are flowering plants too. So here is a dogwood shrub that I have growing, and you can see it producing berries that the bees love, but that was from flowers that the bees were pollinating earlier this spring. So it provides some nice structure to the garden with having these shrubs and trees, as well as providing important resources, especially in the early spring. That's it for my brief garden tour. Best of luck with your growing for pollinators this year and into the future.